Well, I'm a big fall lover. We learned that Rachel is a big fall lover. And I know for a lot of people, this is the time of year that you fire up Gilmore Girls again for the millionth time to rewatch it. And there's something, I think it's the snappy writing. I think it's the strong character development. But I know there's a lot of people that relate to that mother-daughter relationship that Lorelai and Rory have.
Yeah.
It's very buddy-buddy. It's very, you know, they're friends first, mother-daughter second. But in a lot of those TV shows that are out there, Gilmore Girls, Ginny and Georgia, the playful mother-daughter relationship looks appealing on the outside. But I think there is some truth to, you know, your parents are your parents and they shouldn't be your friends.
Yeah.
And I do you find that to be true as a parent?
Yeah, I think it's funny because to me it's like, I think your parents can be your best friends after a certain point, you know?
Yes.
And it kind of like goes back to like early development for kids. You need a structure to grow in before I think you can really expand into just being friends and loosey-goosey with your parents.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Psychologists do warn about the kind of tricky dynamic called parentification, and that's when a child ends up acting like a parent more often than not. Instead of feeling like a kid, they're, you know, comforting their parents, they're mediating fights between their parents, doing the adult chores around the house.
Exactly, yeah, and I think when you're a kid, like so much is going on for you as you're growing, developing, figuring out who you are, what the world is. You kind of need just like a safe structure in which you can focus on that stuff and let the parents focus on the parent stuff.
Yeah, I think the boundaries get really blurred for kids in that time frame if you're doing a lot of the more parenting. I think, you know, the eldest daughter syndrome too, that a lot of people, but I think it happens, and I think that happens kind of naturally amongst a sibling dynamic where the oldest child often feels like a third parent to some degree because at some point your parents will dump the responsibility of taking care of your younger siblings on you, or they say, we're going out, you're in charge.
Yeah. It makes sense, and I think especially, you know, Avery is older than Ford, and I already see, I think there's something in women because we are nurturing.
I think that too.
That we immediately want to take care of younger siblings, so it does kind of force you to step into that. But I was very fortunate that my parents were very much parents first, you know, and now that we're adults, now they're friends. Now that we can have an adult-to-adult conversation with. But I think it creates, for me growing up, the people that had that relationship with their parents didn't really have boundaries, you know, and that can be a little bit dangerous, especially in those teenage years when you need someone to be laying the law down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I think, you know, my parents were always, they too were always, it was clear that like they were our parents, they were not necessarily our friends, they were always friendly, but they weren't, we had our set of friends. And now I think it was one Thanksgiving that like as we were, I think my siblings and I were spread out between teens and 20s. And my mom like sat down and she was like, you know, you guys are really enjoyable adults. We were like, well, don't sound so surprised,
we did
Mom.
good,
Great. And I'm so curious from a parent's perspective, you know, not only do your kids get to learn who you are as a parent, but you kind of learn who your kids are at each stage of life, and that looks different, I imagine, from the toddler stage to the teenage years.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Even between, like, you know, speaking from my personal experience, between Avery and Ford, he's 6, she's 10. She's starting to like think about things in just a different way than he is, and they're going to be mad at you at times. You know, you have to be able to withstand their disapproval, which sounds easy, but it isn't always the easiest. When you look at this little, you know, child that you love, you want to be their friend, you want them to love you and to feel good with you. But yeah, you have to kind of give them that structure and let them figure out who they are, like you said.
I thought this was a great conversation starter, and I think, you know, that's not to say that you're necessarily doing something wrong if you do have that more friendship relationship with your kids. And I think that's common amongst maybe younger parents where you also still don't know what the heck you're doing. You're like, oh, what? Yesterday I was a kid.
I still don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if that feeling ever really goes away.
Bottom line, none of us ever know what we're doing. But I thought this was a fun one to kind of work our brains, get us talking, and an interesting talker for you. But of course, we got to take a quick break. We got more Coast Life, more fun, more exploring of Delmarva to do when we get back.